First rule of Hollywood, never spend your own money, and there's no guarantees. You don't know if it's going to work out. You know, I didn't have a completion bond. Anything could have happened, and I wouldn't have been able to finish the movie. When I was in production, you know, I was like a conquistador dragging a galleon over the mountains or something. I didn't care. I was going to do what it took to get that movie in the can. You know, once I was in at a certain point, I had to go all the way. I had no choice but to finish it, because half a movie does me no good, 3/4 of a movie does me no good, 7/8 of a movie does me no good. I had to get all the coverage in the can, or I would have nothing. I would have been out everything I spent, and there wasn't a distributor at the time, so I spent all this money on this movie, and you're not guaranteed a release. You're not guaranteed anything. It's an incredibly risky thing to do. If you're Bill Gates, yeah, write the check. But me, I put my house on the line. I borrowed money against my house. I was scared of losing it.
We're talking to David Ayer today, the screenwriter and director of Harsh Times, starring Christian Bale, Freddy Rodriguez, and Desperate Housewife Ava Longoria. David also is the creator of Training Day, which Denzel Washington took home the Oscar for. How did you break into the business?
After I got out of the military, I was an electrician, and I went to wire the screenwriter's house in the Hollywood Hills, and this guy Wesley Strick, and he read a couple short stories I'd written about the Navy, and he's like, "Hey, you got something here. You got some talent. You know how to write characters. You know, write good dialogue, and why don't you write a script?" All right, so there my tool belt on, and you know, something clicked. It's like you know, this was opportunity knocking. I mean, this was opportunity kicking the door down. You know, and I wrote that script. You know, and it wasn't a movie. It wasn't a mature piece of work, but it got me, you know, into some rooms, got me into some meetings, and people were like, "Okay, you know, keep at it, and we'll read whatever you write," which is really common. You know, they meet writers, and you want to see how they write and how they develop, because you got to write a lot of scripts before you really get the format down. And you know, after like five or so scripts, I wrote on Training Day, and that was the one. You know, that got me work. That was my calling card. That became like my business card of the business. Training Day is the only spec script I've ever sold. Training Day was like an original idea. I wrote Training Day for me, so I wanted to take pleasure in writing. I wanted to write about the neighborhood. I wanted to write about something I knew, and I started getting rejected. So I figured I'd write something I knew they would reject. That way I'd be ready for it.
You never know. That's the point.
Plot of Harsh Times. Christian Bale plays an Army Ranger coming back from Iraq, trying to get his act together. He's going to marry his girlfriend in Mexico and join the LAPD. Things go a little wrong, but it's a movie about best friends. If you've ever had a best friend, you definitely want to see this movie. I wrote the script, and it got into the Sundance Screenwriter Lab, so I did some development on it. You know, they bring in mentors, and we were like working writers. You know, one of them was Allison Anders, who worked with me on the script. Sundance is all about putting your emotion on the page, not being afraid to show emotion, and not being afraid to put in your work and hanging it out there, no matter what happens.
Yo, mate. Yeah. They're sending me to Colombia.
Colombia.
The best work is, if you're afraid of what you're writing, that's your best work.
What about Martha, you know?
Ain't gonna happen. They told me not to get married.
It's sat on a shelf for years, you know, and I've had a couple people approach me about directing it, you know, a couple directors, you know, kind of circled around it, you know, and I'm like, no, I gotta do this myself, I gotta do it myself. I always wrote it with the intention of directing it. I'm a director now. I'm getting recognized as a director. I got deals with the majors to direct, and it's my calling. I mean, it's my passion. It's the road I'm going to walk. And you know, my advantage is, you know, to be a director, you got to know a writer. You need a script, but you know, I can generate my own material. But I'll take the story, good story from anyone. You know, whether it's someone else's script or a book or, you know, who knows what, but it was, you know, I'm open to wherever the good idea comes from, wherever the good material is. I guess the lesson there is if you believe in what you're doing and you're doing it for yourself and you're doing it from your heart, you're going to succeed. You know, that'll always be the truest material. That'll always be your strongest voice, as opposed to like, hey, what are these guys going to buy? And just writing it for someone else doesn't really work. This is David Ayer, and you're watching Reelblack TV.